Hey everyone, it's Danny and welcome back to Dine at Frugal, where we make quick, easy and budget-friendly recipes every week. On today's episode, we're making a spinach and ricotta lasagna recipe. I originally found this recipe inside the Australian Woman's Weekly 100 Family Meals book. It's actually a spinach and ricotta cannelloni recipe, but I've actually modified it to be a lasagna because I can't find gluten-free cannelloni shells. And I don't want to go to the effort of making my own. I'm going to put all the details for the original recipe down in the description, as well as all the details for the recipe that I'm making today. If I can find the book, I'll link it in the description. This is not a sponsored post. I got my copy in an op shop. It's just in case you're curious. I thought I'd put it in there if I can find it. So I'll do that. On this side, I have all of my ingredients for my ricotta and spinach filling, and on this side I have all of the ingredients for my tomato sauce. What I'm going to do is start off by making the tomato sauce, and then we'll come back and make our filling. Let's go. Okay, so inside my pan I'm going to put about a tablespoon of olive oil, and I'm just going to approximate, and I'm going to heat that over medium high or medium low heat. And then we're going to cook up our onions. So that's really the first step once this has heated up. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my onion. And then we're going to sweat those down until they are cooked through and translucent. So once we get to that stage, I will bring you back. Okay. So now we have our onion that is nice and translucent and slightly golden. I had it on a medium-low heat just to get it to this point. And now what we're going to do is go ahead and add our garlic. And I had actually forgotten to chop our garlic before I started the video, so I had to rush and get it done while the onions were cooking. So what we're going to do is, now that we've got our garlic in, we're going to allow this to just cook a little bit and become nice and fragrant before we move on to the next step. I'm actually going to turn this into a freezer meal. So instead of cooking it off now, I'm cooking off all of the ingredients, laying everything into one of these aluminium foil pans. Once everything is cold, I'm going to wrap it in aluminium foil and some baking paper, and I'll show you how I do this, but I just thought I'd explain it now while we're waiting for the garlic to become fragrant. I'll layer it in here, wrap it in aluminium foil, and then I'll throw it in the freezer. When we're ready to serve it, I'll go ahead and take it out of the freezer, either leave it at room temperature or inside the fridge to thaw out. I will put it in the oven for about an hour and then uncover it for about 15-20 minutes, and that will be dinner done. It just makes weeknights so easy when you've got something in the freezer ready to go. Okay, so now our garlic is nice and fragrant. While I gave you that little spiel, I'm going to turn you back so that we can go and see our pan again. And here we are. Now that our garlic is nice and fragrant, I'm going to add in 4 cans of diced tomatoes. So I've got this on medium to medium high heat just to get it up to the boil, and once it's up to a boil and it's bubbling, I'm going to turn it down to low to let it simmer for that 20-25 minutes. While we've got our sauce bubbling away on the stove, we're going to go ahead and make our ricotta filling. So here I have my ricotta, and you just use one that you like the best. I just got mine at Aldi. Then we have our chopped spinach. I've just used frozen spinach that I have thawed, removed the excess moisture from, and then I've chopped a little bit finer so that there's not these big pieces of spinach. Then in here I have some rosemary and thyme. I'm using dried herbs. If you have fresh thyme and fresh rosemary, go ahead and add those in. Then I have half a cup of Parmesan cheese. And I'm going to move this cream so I don't accidentally go ahead and put it inside my filling. And then I have 2 large eggs. Going to season with salt and pepper, so I'm going to add in some salt and some cracked black pepper. Is we're going to give this a nice mix to get everything nice and incorporated. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just cover this with some cling film or one of my, I'm going to put on one of my bowl caps. I'm just going to put it in the fridge until we need it once our sauce is finished and cooled down a little bit. So that's all done. So our sauce is thickened beautifully. It's lovely and tomatoey. I just had a quick taste. It tastes really wonderful. What I am going to do is I'm going to add salt and pepper to this just to season it a little bit. It does need a little bit of salt. I haven't seasoned it yet at all. I thought I'd let it reduce and then season it at the end in its last few minutes of cooking. I would also, and the recipe also says this, is add a little bit of sugar, but these tomatoes are very sweet, so I'm not going to go ahead and do that. If your tomatoes or your canned tomatoes are a little bit on the acidic side, go ahead and add a teaspoon of sugar and that'll bring down that, that acid. Perfect, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So here I have some salt. On this tomato sauce, I actually simmered this for 60 minutes. I just kept an eye on it. It wasn't thick enough after the 20 minutes. Then I did it for another 20, still wasn't thick enough. And then I decided for 60 minutes and then that's when it came out perfect. So sometimes, yes, the recipe will give you an approximate timing, but it's really about you taking a look and seeing if it's thick enough for you, and mine definitely wasn't. I also find that the different canned tomatoes have a different tomato to liquid ratio. So if your tomatoes are on the more liquid side, they're going to take a little bit longer to reduce down to a nice thick sauce than if there was more tomato pulp in there. Yeah, that's perfect. Now with this sauce, the last thing that it asks you to do is add some cream to add that butteriness, that creaminess to the sauce, which is what I'm going to do now. I've gone ahead and mixed that all through nicely. I'm going to give it a taste to make sure that it's seasoned correctly after I've added the cream in with salt and pepper. If it isn't, I'll just add some more until it's up to my level of taste, and then we're going to come back and we'll assemble all of this. Okay, we've now gotten to the point where we can go ahead and assemble. I'm quickly just going to go out and get my ricotta filling from the fridge because I forgot to get that out. But other than that, everything else is done and ready to assemble. All right, there we go. Okay, so depending on whether you're using cannelloni or whether you're using lasagna sheets, you're going to open up your box. If you're using the cannelloni, you're going to want to fill those cannelloni shells. Because I'm doing lasagna, I'm just going to spread layers of spinach and ricotta. But we're going to start off at the very bottom of each of our trays. Now, because I'm making freezer meals, I use these disposable trays. I get them on sale when they're like $1 or $2 a pack. It makes life really convenient, especially on busy nights. Like I said, I can just put this in the oven with our food about an hour before I finish work. By the time I finish work, dinner's almost ready and on the table, and then once dinner is finished and I'm ready to clean up, I really only have our 2 dishes that we've used to eat. To clean up, this just folds up and gets thrown in the bin. If you don't want to do that, or you have dishes that you prefer to use instead of these aluminium ones, just use a glass baking dish or a ceramic baking dish. It's exactly the same thing. Okay, cool. So I'm going to start off by putting a ladle. This is about 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup in the bottom of each of these trays. The reason that I'm making 2 is because there's just Matt and I here, so one recipe splits evenly into two really, really well, and that's 2 dinners. But if you're feeding more people, then you may either want to double the recipe and make 2, or you want to just make 1. Okay, so once I've evenly distributed the sauce in the bottom of these 2 pans, I'm going to grab, in my case, my lasagna sheets. If you were using, like I said, the cannelloni, you'll want to grab the tube and then fill each of those tubes and line them up on top of this sauce. I might even put just a tad more sauce on the bottom as well if I was doing that method. So I'm going to lay in 1 sheet. Now my sheets don't, and I'm going to come over to the camera so that you can see it, my sheets don't exactly fill the pan very well, and I don't want to put them in the center, otherwise there's all this sauce on the side. So I'm going to put a little bit more sauce on top and then lay another one right beside it, and I'll show you what that looks like when I do it. So that's what it looks like now. So it's on the other side, on the opposite end. So now I'm adding my layer of spinach and ricotta, and I'm going to do, so there's going to be 3 layers of pasta, and there's 2 layers of spinach per, spinach and ricotta per lasagna. I actually like the lasagna as well, making it in lasagna form. It's a bit quicker and it's a little less mess than trying to fill all of those cannelloni shells, cannelloni shells. They're not cannoli shells are different. Go. Gonna even that out as much as possible. I'll add even a little bit more sauce on top. And what I'm going to do with the next layer is lay it the opposite way that I did the last layer. So in this case, I'm going to put my sheet in this corner. Add a little bit of sauce on top. I've tried this, but I guess you could always use zucchini, grilled zucchini or grilled eggplant if you didn't want to use pasta as well. If you wanted to do it that way, I'm sure it would taste delicious. The very, very last thing that we're going to do is we're going to sprinkle Parmesan cheese over the top, and then I'm going to allow mine to completely cool to room temperature before I put a piece of baking paper on top and wrap them in aluminium foil to go into the freezer. If you're wanting to have this for dinner tonight, you would just bake it in the oven at 180 degrees for about 35 to 40 minutes until it's nice and golden on top and the pasta's cooked through. So it's up to you. I just really like having these on hand as freezer meals, and that's why I wanted to make them, because I didn't have any left, but I also wanted to show you how to make them because I just think they're a great idea. So straight out of my packet. And you put as much or as little Parmesan on top as you like. Okay, I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer to take a final look, and then I'm going to allow these to cool, as I said, and I'll bring you back to show you how I actually wrap them to keep them in the freezer. Ooh. Okay, so these have cooled completely to room temperature so that I can go ahead and now put them in the freezer. So I'm going to show you how I prepare them. Like I told you earlier, I think I told you earlier, if you're going to be baking these off, preheat your oven to 180 degrees Celsius and for about 10 minutes, and then place this in the oven, and it'll take about 35 to 40 minutes to cook through completely. The ricotta layer will set and the tomato sauce will be nice and bubbly, and obviously the Parmesan will, on top, will be melted. So that's what you want to do if you want to go down that route. What I'm going to do is freeze these for a later time. So I have my baking paper. Now it's up to you, you don't have to put baking paper on top. I just find because the tomato's acidic, I don't want it touching the alfoil directly. That's why I put the baking paper on top. And I cut about the right amount. So all I'm going to do is just okay, so I'll put one of each of these on top, and I think I may have just slightly overfilled mine, but that's okay. Alright, now I'm going to move these over to the side and I'm going to prepare the alfoil. For my freezer meals, you can use whatever alfoil you have. I just prefer to use the heavy duty alfoil for the freezer meals. Perfect. So, I'm just going to wrap mine up like a present. So once I've gone ahead and packaged the freezer meals in the aluminium foil, what I'm going to do is just grab a permanent marker and I'm going to just write what it is on the top and then also what the baking instructions are, just so that I don't forget. So, okay, I'm going to come around to the camera so you can see what I have written. So all I've done on this one is written spinach and ricotta lasagna, bake 1 hour covered, 20 minutes uncovered at 180 degrees Celsius, thaw first. So that just means that when I take it out of the freezer, all of the instructions are written on top and I don't have to go and reference a cooking book or anything like that. I've got it all there for me. So I'm gonna go ahead now, because these are at room temperature, and put them inside my freezer, and then I'll just bake them off during the week. Thank you so much for watching until the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed today's recipe. I hope you decide to make it and really enjoy it with your family too, whether that be you cook it the day you make it or whether you keep it as a freezer meal for a busy night. Thank you so much for your support on this channel. I love each and every one of you. Please don't forget to like, comment, and if you're not already subscribed, please click on the subscribe button to subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out every time you engage with my channel. I'll be back next week with the next video on Dine at Frugal. Thank you so much again for watching. I'll see you next time, and I'm going to go away and enjoy the rest of my Sunday. Bye!